Good evening, I'm Roberto Torres.
And I'm Calvin Scott.
We're going to be talking to you about what happened after Alexander the Great passed.
Now, after Alexander the Great died, Ptolemy I took over the empire. Now, Macedonian tradition said that the one who buried the king would be his successor. So in order to ensure his placement of Alexander the Great's successor, Ptolemy hijacked the funeral procession and brought the mummified body to Egypt. The body of Alexander the Great would come to rest in Alexandria, the same city he had founded 15 years earlier. Under Ptolemy I's rule, Egypt would grow immensely, and Alexandria would form into one of the scientific capitals of the Greek world. Now, Alexandria was, to an extent, meant to become a new Athens under Ptolemy I's rule, and Ptolemy wanted Alexandria to use both Greek and Egyptian. One very interesting thing that was done was Ptolemy I had the world's first known lighthouse built, and after much growth of Alexandria, Ptolemy I died in 283 BC, leaving his son Ptolemy II as his successor. Now, moving on to the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Now, the lighthouse had three separate and distinct levels. The first was square, the second was octagonal, and the third was cylindrical, and the top was a beacon. During the day, smoke came out of the lighthouse, creating a formidable sight to all onlookers, as was its cause. Now, at the time, only the Great Pyramids of Giza were taller structures. Now, the lighthouse stood, legend said that it stood 300 feet tall, but we have confirmed that it is believed that it might have been up to 450 feet tall. Now, the main fuel to power the lighthouse was wood, and ramps were used for animals to bring fuel to the top. So they literally had ramps going up to the top with animals carrying the wood. And the lighthouse stood for almost 1,600 years, but unfortunately was destroyed around 1300 AD because of an earthquake. A fun fact is in 1994, a team of divers and archaeologists found huge stones that might have been its foundation, and they each weighed about 70 tons. Now, on this map in the bottom corner, we can see the Lighthouse of Alexandria in the top corner of Egypt, where Roberto is circling. Yes, right there. And now for the Library of Alexandria, I will pass the torch to my good friend Roberto.
So the Lighthouse of Alexandria, or the Great Library of Alexandria, was built to house the knowledge that was collected throughout the years. Knowledge became a commodity and was stored and shared. The greatest library of books in the world was this library, and people studying around the world all came here. They were taught that the world was round, and Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth was off by less than 1%. Whenever a ship came into Alexandria, the captain had to declare if he had any works of science or educational purposes, and they took them to go get them copied. Usually the captains did not get the original copy back. The library was eventually burned to the ground somehow, and much of the information was lost.
Wait.
Now, there was a man named Hero of Alexandria. His designs would mark his place as one of the greatest engineers of the ancient world. His books are extremely detailed in describing engineering procedures. Hero had quite an inclination towards art being both art and technology. Automatic doors, odometers, and fire extinguishers were some of his designs, and the first primitive steam engine was built by him. He discovered the power of steam, yet steam engines were not used, as slave labor was so much cheaper. Yes, odometer. And here we have a model of one of his steam engines.